Who come from the furthest distance? Anybody out of the state of Missouri? We'll start there.
We're from Indiana.
Indiana. Nebraska. Kansas. North Carolina. Ma'am, you might win a prize.
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Oh no. Somebody's going to have to get on the Google and see how far it is from your house to his house to be the winner. Anybody know how far it is? How far is it from Minnesota to here?
12 hours.
12 hours? Could you say Minnesota for me again?
Minnesota?
There we go, darling. Didn't we have a lady from cooking school?
We had a gal from cooking school, and her biggest thing was she'd always say, "Holy scatcha-gat." Hear that?
Never heard it.
Holy scatcha-cat.
Oh, jeez, holy scatcha-gat.
What part of Minnesota?
About an hour north of the city.
Where at in North Carolina, ma'am? Blue Ridge Mountains. That is some pretty country. Anybody here from Oklahoma?
Yay!
There we go. I love an Okie, I do. How many here from Oklahoma are OSU Cowboy fans?
No.
We got two. The rest of you Okies can go home. Ain't that right, ma'am? Don't be afraid to say go Pokes. I mean, there we go. So, the weatherman keeps saying, when I got here the first week, he said, next week gonna be cooler. This week he said, next week's gonna be cooler. When I was in the first grade, it's the same thing she told me, my teacher. Next week you might get to go out on recess. Next week never did get there for me, I promise you. It was a long time coming. Anybody need a cup of coffee before we start? Anybody? No. Them old timers on them ranches always told me, keep the inside and outside same temperature, you'll be cooler. I never did believe it. I'd eat ice cream if I got the chance. Shan, is it time to start? Go for it. They look hungry. First of all, thank y'all for stopping by on a hot Friday afternoon. Now it is, ain't it? It's past 12 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
I ain't going to stand by there till I have to. You know, I've been cooking a piece of meat for a long, long time of some form or fashion. I learned that at a very early age, and I experimented with a lot of stuff to eat. My dad raised us, and we was poor ranch folk. He said, whatever you're hunting and you shoot, you will eat.
That's right.
I ate one crow in my life. Y'all ever heard the word expression, eat crow?
Yeah.
Boy, the real thing is bad. I never shot another crow, I promise you that. I had my first grill when I was 10 years old. It was a refrigerator rack on two gyprocks. I'd build me a fire under there and I'd cook me up a spur every once in a while, whatever I could shoot with my BB gun. It probably wasn't edible. If I'd look back at it at this time, I'd probably tell myself I wouldn't eat that. But at the time, I thought I was one of the greatest cooks in the world. I learned there's some things you can't put on the grill and make good. Y'all ever tried to grill pie melon?
No.
It grows in Oklahoma down along the river, and it don't ever get completely right till after a killing frost. You'll see the deer go to munching on it just a little. It's time. When they're green, you can drop them off the Empire State Building and they'll bounce twice as high. They are hard. They make great preserves. But I got to thinking, man ought to be able to grill up something, anything you find. So I sliced me one of them about the middle of July. I burned it black, thinking it would help soften it up. It's sort of like eating 3 tablespoons of alum when you get it in your mouth. I couldn't spit it out in time, I promise you. So from that I graduated to cottontail rabbit. I did love me some grilled rabbit. We didn't have many squirrels in our country, but occasionally we'd find one and we could knock him down with the BB gun, we'd grill him too. I will tell you something from experience, don't eat grilled possum. It's got so much grease on it, all it does is flare up and want to burn. And people tell me you can wrap bacon around anything and eat it. You can't a possum. Bacon will not help him that much. I promise you that. But when I got big enough to where I thought I could throw a real piece of meat on there, I had Mom and Daddy buy me a grill one time for birthday. I love a train. Anybody y'all want to take that train home, you can today. So I got me an old charbroil smoker. About this big, about that tall. Every once in a while, we raise beef, people would say, how'd you eat it? They'd ask my dad. He'd say, rare. They said, oh, I have to cook mine medium. He said, no, I'm talking about the occasion we're going to eat it. That's rare. He said, it's going to sale, not meat. But every once in a while, one get crippled or something, and we'd get one in the freezer. And boy, me and Mama would make the most of that opportunity, I promise you. Now, the beef going down the trail so many years ago, we'll let him get back, because I can't out talk. The beef going down the trail so many years ago, longhorn beef, some of it 5, 6 years old when it started. By the time it got to Abilene and traveled them considerable miles in a pretty good walk, sometimes a trot, they were lean beef. I want to tell you today, the beef we get today is better than what them boys eat going down the trail in the 1870s and 1880s. And there is a great argument across the United States, grain-fed or not, grain-fed or grass-fed. Well, I tell people, we was in New York cooking a bunch of steaks one time, and I told them, this lady said, we won't eat nothing but milk-fed beef that's raised on grass. I said, ma'am, it all started out that way. All of it was milk-fed for at least 90 days, probably. Then it grazed on grass for probably 2.5, 3 months. I said, so it all starts out that way. No, it don't. Some of it don't ever see nothing but grain. I said, ma'am, you ever seen one when it's little? All I ever seen is in the package. We got to start a grill off hot, and I mean hot because I like to clean one pretty good. And nothing cleans better than fire and cauterization. Now, we had to buy this thing here just for demonstrations because it's hard to cart old Bertha out here and do something with her. And she is pretty hot and heavy. But if I'm cooking a whole bunch of steaks, and the most we've cooked at one time is probably 600 at one time. And that's a lot of beef at one time. But we wasn't using this, we was using old Bertha and a big old tractor rim that was hollowed out. I'd lay me expanded metal over there because it had some supports across it. We'd cook about, close to 150 in about 12 minutes, something like that. But it takes a right smart of firewood. I am not a charcoal guy, as in briquette. I am a hardwood guy. I burn thousands and thousands of pounds of mesquite every year. But we go places where they won't let me build a fire on the ground like California, and I have to take this. So we use a hardwood lump of some kind. Now, they make it right here in Branson. Royal Oak make a hardwood lump. I brought hardwood lump mesquite with me to cook today. It's the same thing, it's real wood, and it burns hot like wood. Burnt down so long and then put in a container and starved for oxygen until it goes out and cools, and then they sack it. But it is good stuff. But if I was cooking a bunch of meat on here today, I would keep me a hot end, a medium end, and a cold end. Because I'm always going to start it out down there on the cool, then warm, then we're going to go to hot. But before I do that, I always take my meat. Let me see if I can find a pocket knife. And today we are eating certified Angus beef New York strip. They are a great sponsor of mine. They have some of the best guidelines. And first I want to tell you this, there is good beef everywhere. But they probably have some of the best and strictest guidelines for meat of any place that I've ever been in my life, and they have showed me a lot of meat in the last 35 years. But when I'm cooking steak for somebody, they have to all look the same. If I got 600 New York strips out there, they better be 14 ounces each one of them. They better have the same degree of marbling in them, and they better all look the same. Now, they have a guide sheet that they go by on the amount of back fat that you can have on an animal, and I used to call it this method. Many years ago when I was in a meat lab class at Oklahoma State University in 1979, 80, if it's got this much back fat around the rind of a steak, it's too much. But I wanted to have at least that much. But then they got to talking about marbling. Now when Shan come along, she liked to eat beef. And she'd go to the store, she'd look for the cleanest, reddest piece of meat she could find. You want marbling in that beef. That is not gristle, that is little white flecks of fatty butter flavor. That's what makes stuff tender. I call it beef butter. And you have to have so much of that marbling to become certified Angus beef. And they give it to me every time I ask for it. We're going to grease it just a tad with some form or fashion or whatever you got. I don't care what it is as long as it ain't motor oil. And I do this 4 hours ahead of time. But today we're going to rush just for y'all. Lime juice is a natural tenderizer. Citric acid in here breaks down muscle connective tissue, and it will make meat tender. Now, I wouldn't have to put it on this because it is already tender, but I'm going to put it on every piece I get. I use it on wild game, pork, steak. If I got something that has fins or feathers, I use lemon juice. But it's got to be 100% pure, which this is 100% lime juice. I season with our original. Now, if I wasn't cooking with mesquite, I might mix it half and half, our mesquite rub and this. Always remember to season well. So many people do 2 things wrong when they cook beef. Under-season, overcook. Steak was meant to be eaten from medium down, not medium up. When you cook beef past medium, and 62% of the general public at one time 3 years ago eat all their beef over medium. The longer you leave it on a fire, the less flavor you get, the more you dry it out, the more carcinogens you create from the charcoal and the crust. So it's always best to eat meat rare to medium rare. Now, I've had all them chefs come up to me throughout the years, and I'm not a chef, I'm a cook. I was cooking for a bunch of chefs and certified Angus beef from all over the world. It was a little intimidating at the time. I mean, some of them on cruise ships, some of them on fancy 5-star restaurants, you know, and they come out there to Old Bertha and whiz grilling steak, 22-ounce bone-in ribeyes. That's a big piece of meat. And one of them chefs come out there and he said, "How you cook them?" I said, "Till I like them." He said, "No, you cook them medium rare?" I said, "Right on the edge of medium rare, and then I hold them." He said, "What temperature would you think that'd be?" I said, "The right temperature." He said, "How do you know?" I said, "Touch and sight." I said, 30-something years of cooking a steak, I've got pretty good at thinking that is just right. He said, "Well, let me probe this one." And he took that thermometer out of his pocket, and I said, "You poke a hole in that meat, I'll hit you in the head." You don't turn any steak with one of them hooks. You never puncture meat that you got on a grill, just letting something out of it. It's just like running over a nail with your brand new car tire. Something's gonna happen. So I will season them steaks just like that. I'll put them in a plastic bag or a Walmart sack, anything that I can tie up tight, stick them in a Yeti cooler or the icebox, about 4 hours. Then you bring them out, and there's a very important thing you got to do next, and that is you let it come to room temperature before you cook it. Now, we had started this fire with just coals out of Old Bertha and that hardwood lump. Had some folks one time invited me over to eat at their house, and me and Shan pulled up, and they said they was having big old ribeyes, and I love a ribeye. When we pulled up in their driveway, I could smell lighter fluid. I told her, I said, "Get in, we'll go get a burrito." I said, "Call them, tell them you feel ill, we ain't going in there." Lighter fluid is one of the most, that's bad grammar, the worst thing I ever seen in my life too if you're going to cook over it. It says it burns the taste and the flavor gone out of that stuff. It don't ever. You're just supposed to be cooking with diesel. Now, you can use one of them chimneys. I don't, but you can. Put you some paper in there, put you some of that hardwood lump in there, start you a fire, dump it out. You know how many loads I'd have to put in there to cook 600 and something steaks? A bunch. Would you bring the little torch over here? I use a torch. Hear that sound? Mm-hmm. I like that sound. That's heavy, ain't it, sugar? This is what I start a fire with everywhere I go. It is propane. And it will start a fire in a hurry. Even on ranches, I take it with me. About 2:15 in the morning, you can hear it come on, sound like a bazooka going off, you know. One of them cowboys will get up and he'll come over and he'll say, you know, old Cookie never did have one of them. I said if he could have found one, he'd have burned everything in camp down first day. He would have liked it. But always start it, mount them coals up some way if you got to do it like that. Get them started good, wait till they get good and hot, go to work. Now, when you're grilling a piece of meat, since we ain't going to put no probe in it, how do you know when it is the right flavor? Well, everybody make this position. Now feel this muscle right here. Pretty soft, ain't it? That's on the edge of rare to medium rare. Now put this one up there and feel it again. That's medium. If you're using these two fingers, cut them off with an axe. Because he done died once. We ain't going to kill him again and ever cook him past medium. I promise you. I had a lady come up to me one time. We was doing a deal for about 450 New York strips. They was about 1.5 inches thick. And she said, sir, I cannot eat a rare steak or a medium rare or a medium. I can only eat my steak well done. I give her the tongue, showed her the steak. I said, it's all yours, ma'am. I can't do it. She said, you're going to let me cook it. I said, yes, ma'am. You can cook your steak. You're the last one in line. Enjoy it. I said, glad to have you. I'll even sit here and visit with you while you're cooking. She let it shrink half in size, curl up on both ends, black, looked like a piece of old shoe leather. We drug it off. She said, I heard you say we need to let it set and rest before we cut it. I said, ma'am, you can't cut that with an axe. We can let it rest 3 years. But you're going to ruin every piece of meat you have if you overcook or under-season. Now, if I was grilling a piece of pork or a piece of chicken, pork and chicken are notorious to want to try to dry out on a grill. So we do a lot of 16-ounce bone-in pork chops, center cut, big old chicken breast. What I do is I season them the same way, but if you're seasoning chicken, chicken does not like to accept seasoning well. So what do? I take the rolling pin to my chicken, and I abuse him severely. I will flatten him a little, but I have to break that membrane that's on that chicken breast before he will sit there and let me accept seasoning that I'm putting on him. You can marinate one and finally get it to soak in, but if it's a dry rub, you need to break that membrane on that chicken. I'll put lemon juice on him, then I'll put our seasoning on him, then I'll take me a piece of tinfoil about that long, about that wide, put me about 4 of them big old chicken breasts in there, lay me a piece of butter on each one of them, wrap it up, seal it, throw it on the grill. I'm going to let it steam for about 4 to 5 minutes on each side. I want it to be good and white when I bring it out of there, and then I'm going to finish grilling it. And when you cut it, it is done, but it has juice, just like a steak. It will be the tenderest piece of chicken you ever eat in your life. Same way with the pork chop. I steam a lot of them. So just remember what you're cooking, and you can make it as tender as you want it. Sure, there are cuts of meat that you do need to marinate. Next week, we'll probably either do some tri-tip or flank steak. And I like to break that meat down with something that's a little harsher than lime juice. That may have a little balsamic vinegar in it, a little honey, a little chipotle pepper, something like that, but I want to break it down. Because that meat is a little coarser than what you're going to find on a steak. Anytime you have a coarser muscled meat, you may have to add more acid to it in some way to break that down. Any questions on grilling? Anybody? This is really easy crowd. You know what I mean? I don't know if they're paying attention. I think they're just hungry. They're afraid if we go to talking and answering questions, we won't eat near as quick. I don't know what time it is, but I think it's way too early to quit. Ma'am, do you have the time?
103.
Oh, we got all the time in the world. Y'all going to have to ask some questions, know what I mean? So,
I have a question.
yes, ma'am, sugar.
You were talking about chicken breast, roll it,
Yeah, I don't roll it.
pound it.
I pound it.
Okay. What happens if you have a chicken breast that has bones in it? Do you pound that one too?
I usually debone a chicken breast. I will cut it right down there, butterfly it off both sides, whatever. Or you can flatten them out to where you leave the bone in there where it's just two sides, bone in the middle. Hit that side, same thing.
Okay.
Just cut him on the bottom side of the breast right there next to the backbone. Anybody else?
Well,
yes, sir, brother.
Skin on or skin off on the chicken?
I like skin on, but I cook them both ways. A lot of times, if you just throw one on the grill that's got the skin on him, a lot of times that skin is going to try to stick to that grill before you ever get him off there. So a lot of times I end up, especially if it's for the public, if we're doing a skin on, it's like a baked chicken then finished on the grill. Because it wants to tend to fall off. Yes, sir.
Did you ever cook half chicken? I mean,
Half chicken.
The bones, what take on
We
that?
have a recipe in that cookbook for Cornish game hens, whole, which I have smoked a lot of whole chickens, and I didn't even have a smoker. All I had was a grill, but it had a lid, fire on this end, fire on that end, nothing in the middle. Circulation takes place because we got a good wind in Oklahoma. It takes a while to cook it, and you're going to have to add to the fire because it ain't but that deep, you know. But the Cornish game hens we prepare, hey, they are good as anything in the world. Just don't lose that gravy that's down there with them. It sure goes good over some taters. Anybody else? I see it sweating, so we're going to turn it over. Yes, ma'am.
When you have a beef butcher
Yes.
and at the locker, depending on how long they hang the beef, could you address that?
Yes, ma'am. The beef that all the beef that I get, I won't say most, all of the beef I get has 21 days on it at least.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of places are going to try to peddle it on you and get it out in 14.
Right.
And the longer you can age a piece of meat, the better it's going to be if it's in the right condition. There's a dry age, there's a wet age, you know, and then there's just regular almost sticking back there in the freezer and leaving, or 40-degree temperature.
Right.
Some of the best beef I ever had was 50 days.
I believe it.
It is good. You see people that are aging meat on their own now. That Cryovac package, I'll take some of them that me and Shannon are going to eat later, and I'll just set them back there in the back of the ice ball. A month and a half later, I might dig them out and eat them. Now, in that aging process, a lot of you thinking that is mold on there. Sure it is, but what is it growing? Bacteria that is making something tender. It will come right off there. And it is some good eating, I promise you that. Anybody else? I like questions.
Could you address the pros and cons? You mentioned the controversy between grass-fed beef and grain-fed beef.
All right.
Now, I'm a grain-fed beef person.
Amen, darling. Speaking to the choir now, sugar. We'll pass the hat in a minute. Me and you'll go get us something to drink there.
Yeah.
When people are eating a lot of grass-fed beef, and I'm not knocking them folks. I've had all kinds of beef, from fresh-killed beef, because it happened when we were working cattle, and they'd drag it up there to camp and say, Cookie, this is yours, get after it. But when you grass-feed cattle out with no finish of a high-protein diet, you're beginning to eat an animal that is tasting more like a game animal, elk.
Yeah.
Now, deer are not that way unless it is a mule deer. They are grazers. Whitetails are browsers. Elk are grazers. But when you can finish with a ration, say you can grass-feed that calf till he weighs 800 pounds. Stick him in a good feed yard somewhere, give him a high-protein hot ration to where you're going to get that finish on him, make some of that good fat, not that yellow tallow, and it will be some of the best eating you have. Now, I've eaten both kinds. What do I prefer? Grain-finished beef. Anybody else? This is a good group, Shin. Yes, ma'am.
Talk about HAC. When you buy hamburger meat from the grocery store, sometimes it's brown.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm glad you brought that up, darling. Hamburger meat. Hamburger meat in the local grocery store a lot of times, when it gets to that color, they've had it too long. What are they going to do? They're going to put some dye in there. They're going to fluff it back up, stick it in another package, and set it back out there and say, fresh today, hamburger meat. When you go to a grocery store and you buy a piece of meat, it will have a package date on it. It has to have. If it's 4 days past that, if it's processed, I don't eat it. Because processed beef, I don't even eat a hamburger that is below medium. It all has to be medium or above because the word processed is in there. Somebody had their hands on it, and it was combined somewhere. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Another reason the center of your ground beef is brown, they haven't cleaned the grinder.
That is true. The grinder will be clean. But also, when meat comes in contact with too much oxygen, what happens to it? Discoloration.
That's right.
Anybody else? Y'all are a good group of people, they are, Shin. I'm glad y'all stopped by. We actually cooked these steaks for some other folks. But we are so glad that y'all come by to visit with us. And this has got the original on it. I think we might ought to cut it just to see, because I hope it didn't go too long. You remember the Sermon on the Mount?
Yep.
What did Jesus have? How many fish?
7.
Wasn't it 4?
5 loaves and 2 fishes.
5 loaves and 2 fishes.
Yes.
How many people did he feed, ma'am?
The multitude.
Which was way over what we are today, right?
Right.
I am not Jesus.
I was going to say that.
We will feed till it runs out. I sort of like that color. That's about what I would call nearly the upper end of medium rare. I like them when you can just take him on this end, say, come on, calf, come back here. I like for him to beller when I eat him. So we're going to eat some steak. There's a lot of great recipes in that cookbook. We have a new product out, a green chili chipotle relish that I guarantee you will even go on this, but I won't. One other thing I'm going to leave you with, if you go in a steakhouse and they have a bottle of steak seasoning, steak sauce, ketchup, go home. Steaks are made to be eaten for what they are. But remember, see how this steak is bleeding?
Yeah.
Because we didn't let him set and rest before we cut him. You always got to let him rest just a minute before you cut that steak. I want to thank you for stopping by. We're going to sit and listen to the Farnham family over here. They are going to play us some beef-eating music. Beef-eating music. I ask you to stop and shop with us because we need all the help we can get. All the proceeds go to a needy Beagle Foundation, and that beagle is mine. God bless you each and every one. Let's have some beef.